Hello and welcome to The Season That Was, brought to you by AAMI, Riley, Beveridge and Kane Cornes with you. And Kane, today we are looking at Carlton's 2024 season. They snuck into finals, but I think ultimately, given the way it ended, it has to be described as a disappointment.
Yeah, just making up the numbers is what they did. They just scraped in a really strong position throughout the early stages of the year, but fell away badly. Couldn't really beat any of the better sides in the competition. And in the last sort of a third of the season, they only really knocked off Richmond and West Coast and the bottom team. So that is about where they deserve to finish. And the performance in the elimination final against Brisbane wasn't a surprise.
No, it wasn't. Let's have a look at some positives of their campaign, though. And they are still really strong in the contest. So number 1 for contested possessions, 3 for clearances, 4 for tackles, 4 for stoppages. They've got their spine sorted at least.
Yeah, they do. And this is when they're at their most powerful. And this game against Port Adelaide in Adelaide, this last quarter was something else. You thought this team is well and truly capable of winning the premiership. So the pressure on the ball forced the turnover, inside composure and then spread. Now Cripps was just enormous in this last quarter on that night, but that's Carlton at its best. But is that the only way that they can score? They need to do it a little bit easier. This is hard work to sustain that sort of level of contest and pressure throughout a 24-week season, which is getting longer. It's just too hard, and in the end they needed to do it an easier way.
That game against Port Adelaide seems like a lifetime ago, and part of the reason for that was the injuries that mounted, particularly through the back half of the season. Let's have a look. They ended up with only 3 players that played every game this season: Pat Cripps, Nick Newman and Matt Kennedy. Their last 2 games of the season, Michael Voss was picking his 26-man squads from 28 players. They had over 40% of their squad injured. Yeah,
it's a real shame that we didn't get to see them with a full list. Now, no team has a full list for the majority of the season, but they clearly were struck just as hard as anyone, or if not harder. Only Richmond were worse. So that's the reality of it. And how much of that do you give them an excuse? They rushed 6 players back in for that elimination final against Brisbane. Most of those were underdone, but we've just got to see a full season from De Koning. We've got to see a full season of Curnow and Mackay. We weren't able to do that, and they hit them really hard late in the season, so it was always going to be really difficult.
It was going to be difficult. Let's have a look at their finest moment of the year. It came all the way back in opening round when they trailed by 40-odd points to the Lions. And then we saw some of that scoring power in the second half when they were able to come back and record a victory. This is when you thought they were going to be a real premiership contender.
Yeah, you did. This was a huge win. But they never really put 4 quarters together, do they? Very rarely. Like even this, so you get on a roll, kick a lot of scores in a row and a lot of goals in a row, and you thought, well, this is amazing. But to be able to do this consistently week in, week out, that is what's going to get you the ability to finish top 4, which they haven't done since 2000 at the end of the home and away season. That's where you win premiership from, not from outside. It's just too hard, as we've seen with the Western Bulldogs as well. So they need to bring a reliable, sustained effort, hopefully with a full squad. They've got a new fitness man coming in. They poached Sydney, so that's a huge get. And because there's not a whole lot of list changes that, you'd be all over that. There's not going to be dramatic change at the end of the season. So largely it is going to be this squad, and hopefully it's going to be this squad, but the healthy version.
Well, let's have a look at their season star, and it can be none other than Patrick Cripps, who's going to be one of the Brownlow fancies. And he's one of those players that you mentioned. We speak about their A-graders. There's none bigger than Patrick Cripps, but they've got to strike while they've got likes of Patrick Cripps and Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay and Jacob Wiedering are in their prime.
Yeah, he needs to win a premiership, doesn't he? He deserves to win a premiership. He's had this group on his shoulders for the best part of 7 or 8 years. So his numbers are extraordinary. You can see them there, but 28, 8 clearances, 5 tackles, and he kicked 16 goals. He's now a goal-kicking midfielder, which he's added probably in the last 3 seasons to his game. That's why he's so threatening. I thought he was the one that single-handedly allowed them to qualify for finals with his last 2 or 3 games, but just an enormous year and a worthy Brownlow medal winner if he wins it.
A grading for Carlton?
Yeah, I'm disappointed because of where they were at, so I'd give them a C+.
Yeah, okay. Plenty still to come on AFL.com.au as we're wrapping up every club season in the season that was.